Welcome in to the Just Basketball Show for Monday, July 24th. I'm Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. As always, we're produced by Dillon and Jake Stevens. Today's show is going to be all about under-the-radar NBA storylines. We're also going to discuss how the NBA could duplicate the quarterback series from Netflix. And we're going to talk about the Hulu original film. Calling it a film might be a stretch. White Men Can't Jump.
Everybody's been waiting with bated breath to hear our thoughts on Jack Harlow, so the day has come. Don't worry.
Brendon, there are two people I want to bring up first in that movie discussion before Jack Harlow that I enjoyed much more than what Jack Harlow was doing in that film. I'm more curious if you'll be able to guess them when we get there. But I want to tell you also about our friends from Homage. Remember, founded in 2007, Homage is an ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company that uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and pop culture. They have a bunch of great licenses, WNBA, NBA, NFL, MLB, and more, and hundreds of other unique lifestyle and pop culture designs. They're not just another fan teacher company. They craft the softest, most nostalgic clothing for sports fans, pop culture aficionados, and everyone in between. Go to the link
Both got our shirts on.
Well, I don't actually. I have another one. I have another company's t-shirt.
Wow,
on
hide it. Put a piece of paper, tape it over.
I did wear my Jimmy Butler shirt yesterday and got some compliments on it.
I've gotten a compliment on the Jimmy shirt too. The lasso. It's perfect.
It's a great shirt. But click the link below. Buy her something nice. Buy someone you care about. Something nice. Some of the money comes back to support the show. All right, Brendon, let's start with the quarterback series and how the NBA could duplicate us on Netflix. This is a concept for sports stuff I really like. This feels like the modern streaming era evolution of a kind of book that we used to get every so often. The two that come to mind, Chris Ballard wrote one in a long time ago now. I read it like in 2015.
Game, right? Is that what it was
The Art
called?
of the Beautiful Game.
Yeah.
The Thinking Fans Tour of the NBA. He went in, he talked to LeBron, he talked to Steve Kerr about shooting, he talked to Shane Battier. Like
the Shane
Dirk
Battier
and
stuff
Nash.
is what stuck in my head the most from reading that book.
Yeah.
The way he would talk about how he would like smack Kobe on the forehead and stuff when he would defend him, just like the mind games of being like a stopper like that. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that book is one of my, I think, the best basketball books ever. It's up there with like Loose Balls and Breaks of the Game. I think it's underrated, and as far as like a sports book can be underrated. There's also Grant Wall's Masters of Modern Soccer Art. Rest in peace to Grant Wall. But he went around a couple years ago and talked to like Manuel Neuer and a bunch of other great soccer players, football players, about their approach to the game. And it was like chapter by position. Basketball, Brendon, I think if we were going to do this, I think if I was going to build this, I would want it to be like a defensive Masters kind of thing. And I'd want it to be kind of historic if possible. Like I would want KG, I would want Draymond, and I would want pick someone from the 90s perhaps to kind of get that 90s nostalgia pull. And I think it would be about like building like great NBA defenses. I think the other way you could go is just hoopers, just get guys who are getting buckets. And do an episode on Kobe and like talk about the influence Kobe has had on the generation that exists. Like that's the other way to go. I don't think there is like a position in the same way there is a position in the NFL like quarterback. There's
like
not,
once
upon
a time maybe it could have been point guard, right? But that doesn't really
shooting
exist.
guards. Or like there was like a scoring guard mold that used to exist
Sure.
that doesn't exist exactly.
But like part of the thing and like again to the reason we're talking about this is because quarterback has been like a big hit for Netflix and people really love it. But I think one of the things that you're able to do with that show that's part of why it's good, it's really good, is the quarterback is also like it means something for the off-field and leadership aspects of the team. There's the pressure elements. Like episode 1, you already have Kirk Cousins going to the team psychologist because of trying to deal with the new offensive coordinator, and he's trying to then like distill that for the player. Like there is such an element of it. So where I went, actually, I like between your ideas, I like the defense one because it kind of has those elements, and I think it hasn't been done before as much. Whereas like the Hooper thing, you're kind of veering into like what all basketball content is about. Like there's like the Kevin Durant show that's on Apple TV right now that's like about like New York point guards, and it's like, I mean, you got good access, but like, okay, we all know Greg Anthony, cool, like, all right, but you know, I think the defense one would be cool. I just don't know if the defense one is sexy enough.
That's why I said the Hooper one, and that's why I think the way you do it to maybe like add some nuance and craft to it, and the way you get quarterback is like, let's talk about footwork, let's talk about the evolution of shot selection, let's talk about the strength component, the craft,
or like how the
like
rules have screwed you, right? Like there could just be guys being like, defense used to be a lot easier, and like, now you can't do this and that, and like take you inside how much their job is like gotten harder.
Yeah, do 6 episodes on like Hoopers and scoring, and then one episode is like you lead it off with like Gary Payton in a cold open talking a bunch of shit about how he used to be able to defend guys and how you can't anymore. And you talk to like Shane Battier, you talk to Kawhi would be incredible, you never would get him. Draymond, like you talk to like the elite perimeter defenders we have now, or guys
like
that have
Hakeem,
like filled it,
something like that, yeah.
Right, or like someone to get a little like real modern with it, someone like KCP who's like been a really stout, like solid wing defender, not an elite one, but like a very good one on a team that just won the NBA championship. And you talk to him about like, okay, how do you approach this as a guy who is maybe defending above his steez a little bit at times, right? Like there's some part of that would be cool.
There was a really cool piece of content that the Celtics did last year when Marcus Smart got the DPOY trophy. Did you see any
another
of this?
Guy you shouldn't. I did. Another one that should be in this
for sure. But so Gary Payton gave him the trophy, like came to the Celtics facility, and kind of like honored him with that. And I remember, I don't know if it was like a side interview that they did, or maybe just him talking about Marcus getting it and their relationship in a separate interview or whatever. But they obviously have a relationship, and that was his big thing. Is he's like, I mean, he's never gonna like back down from pumping himself up. It's Gary Payton, but like he was also like, it's pretty impressive for a guard to get this, because obviously the other significance was that was the last time a guard won it before Smart was GP. Right. So I think that type of stuff is cool, and those guys do have a brotherhood. So my thing, because of the idea of the off court and the leadership aspect and everything else, would be to call it like superstar. But then you have to get guys who are all the caliber of Mahomes, in the quarterback example on Netflix. But my idea would be to maybe take it of like somebody who is a superstar. You only have to get one. Somebody who maybe for one reason or another has kind of been knocked off course in a little bit of the Kirk Cousins type of mold of like, maybe not. This is one of like my last chance type of deal. And then somebody younger who's like kind of on their way, like Anthony Edwards or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Tyrese Halliburton. One of these guys. Mariota's not quite that type of player, but that would be the idea. I think that would be a really cool way to do it, because then it's kind of the circumstances that go into like the franchise is on your shoulders and whatever. So similar to what we did with the booth, you give me 3 for your defense idea, and I'll give you 3 for my superstar idea.
Yeah. So if I'm gonna go defense, I'm gonna do 5. Can I cheat and do 5?
Sure. I mean, if you're paying for it, you got the budget. Go for it.
We should just say solidarity with SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild. Just to be clear.
Can I say not Jack Harlow, or is that like cruel of me? He's got other revenue streams. We'll talk about him later.
That guy,
solidarity with everybody besides Jack Harlow if he's a member.
Yeah, I don't wonder if he's in SAG. I don't know. Watch, he's like on the Oscars.
Don't you kind of have
like
to be once you're like on a set and stuff for like safety
reasons? Yeah, but
like.
Yeah, but he also probably gets health, and he definitely makes more than $26,000 a year for health insurance, which
I would think.
Yeah, I would hope so. So okay, here's my 5. I want Draymond. Okay. I want KG. I actually want here's what I think. I want Draymond as the first episode, and then I want Draymond. I'm gonna pay Draymond a lot of money to like do this and do the interviews with people.
Okay.
Because I think he would do really well.
So he's like the Peyton Manning overseeing it all.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so he's my like lead figure of this. Draymond, KG, Marcus Smart as the guard. I want to do like a Jaren Jackson, like young switchy big kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I want a Brook Lopez episode. I want a Brook Lopez episode about how Brook Lopez evolved, what went into him evolving from post up, not a good defender, big slow feet Brook Lopez to Defensive Player of the Year candidate multiple times over Brook Lopez, and you could have a bunch of great clips of Robin Lopez just talking a ton of shit about his brother.
Brook Lopez is like, he's just not quite a big enough name to do like a book or something centered on him, but you can pretty much tell like the whole story of the NBA's evolution through him if you wanted to.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like shoehorn. He's like going to be episode 3. I'm going to shoehorn him in, and we're going to do something really cool about that, and then we're going to like go back to like a much bigger name. We'll go to like Marcus after that, or something like that.
Sure. All right. So my big fish that's doing it all is going to be Shaq. He's the Peyton Manning for the superstar edition of this show that I'm concocting. All right. The biggest person, kind of like the Mahomes edition of this, is kind of interesting because you want somebody who's accessible and will talk, which is what's so impressive about Mahomes being a participant in this show. I mean, he's kind of vanilla, all things considered. He's just so great. There's not like anything controversial about Patrick Mahomes, whereas a lot of NBA superstars, there's controversy because people just like to yell about them on the internet.
Yeah, and there's not like a cool nickname. Like he doesn't have like the Joe Shiesty, like Burrow, like kind of like vibe to him a little bit in that way.
So where my mind went, although it's a person who a lot of content has been made about, is Steph Curry.
Oh, see, I think there's a better one. If I'm gonna
tell me,
it's Giannis.
Oh, okay, yeah, Giannis is great. Giannis is perfect because we haven't really been taken inside like that. Whereas with Steph, it's like, okay, the kids, the wife, golf, great.
He just produced his own like 824 documentary through Apple. Like there is a really good Giannis book in the way there's a really good Steph book. Miran Fader wrote the Giannis one. Marcus Thompson II wrote the Steph one. They're both really good reads if you want a good basketball book to check out in August here. But Giannis would be accessible. We know from the quote that he gave about failure that like he can go to different places. He has a really positive view on a bunch of things.
No, he'd be game
I think
for it.
He's the answer. I think he's the answer.
He would do it. All right, so Giannis, and then the sort of like teetering or like trying to prove it mid-career, what's going to happen, whatever. I want to go Donovan Mitchell.
I was going to be like, that's the answer, but I didn't want to get the buzzer, so I'm glad you said it. Because he's the one. He's the 2-trip playoff flameouts. Mm-hmm. He would, so having been around, covered him in person for a year now, he would talk, and he'll say a lot sometimes without really saying anything because that's what all superstars do. But he also will say things like enough where it's interesting. And I think if you did it through like at the right moments, I think it could be really interesting.
All right, and then I already said the up and comer, and I think it would be Anthony Edwards. Like that's just
with a bullet.
I mean, already has a Netflix relationship with Hustle, and like just like he would not hold back whatsoever. The only reservation I guess you could have there with 2 of the 3 guys we've picked is like they don't really have a lot of like family stuff going on in terms of like wife, kid, brother, sister, like people that are well known in that world. It's kind of like, oh, and I went to Miami to watch Messi's first game, or like with Ant, it's like, oh, I played video games, whatever. But they could make it work. Like, from a basketball standpoint, those 3, Giannis, Donovan, Ant, that's like a perfect lineup. I would watch the hell out of that.
Yeah, I mean, the Donovan one, I think you have I think the playoff failure stuff is like very on the surface with him. I think the New York stuff is always going to play really well, and then he kind of like that. I mean, like that will annoy people, but like that is like an angle you can push in a certain way and do something creative with. Ant will just be entertaining. Like there's just no way you're not doing an episode on that guy, and it's not going to come out like hilarious. Like it's going to be the funniest thing you produce that year.
It's going to be hilarious, and you're going to, I think like there is a cool, if you do it right and don't like lean into the Kobe tropes or just like do the same narrative, but if you really are able to get in the mind of a dude like that who works as hard as he does, there is always going to be some interesting nuggets to find. Like what drives you to be so insane about this stuff and so confident and everything else. Like, Ant is one of those guys, like you listen to interviews with him and he will just say like, I'm the best player in the NBA. And it's not like the cocky, I'm doing it for Instagram because like my AAU coach told me to say that once upon a time because it makes you sound good, and now I'm going to say what no, he just thinks that. And like I would love to just hear him elaborate on his cockiness and confidence because it's earned.
The last guy that I would want to shoehorn into yours somehow is Shea, because I want him to just have to decipher his Instagram captions on camera.
That whole Thunder team is very busy on social media, and we'll see how that goes as they get better, because it's cute now, but we know what happens, is what I'll say.
Yeah, that's really where Grady Dick should have ended up, just from like a content standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's true.
They
have their white guy quota filled though with Chet.
Yeah, but that's like that's the king of the weird white boys. Yeah. Brendon, how many? I don't want to tell you how many times I've watched that clip that like can't like that Russillo had the tweet of like Max Player, the clip like under that tweet of like all the compilations at the Funky Town of like all the weird dances and stuff he was doing on his TikTok. And then this guy's at the airport the other day and he's like first class, but he's got all of his clothes in a trash bag. It's like, well, Grady, like you have like the fuck, man, get a bag.
Yeah. You have a bag, now get a bag.
Yeah, he is literally the weirdest. He is like the weird white boy that happens to also just be like an amazing basketball player. And him on the Thunder with making TikToks with Josh Giddey and like commenting on Shea's Instagram.
Oh yeah,
captions,
they have Josh Giddey too. No, their quota is more than filled. They're good.
Yeah, but he's like the Aussie.
Filled.
Yeah, okay, but Grady Dick is like the king. Like the other kind of thing you could do is if you did like a YouTube thing and it was just like you ever watch the Serge Ibaka like cooking like Eat with Serge videos? Mm-hmm. I want him to like do that now, but like with just random guys in the league. Like First We Feast, fund this, and let's do like Hot One seasons, but with eating the Serge.
Yeah, I want an NBA thing like this. It made me jealous. I'm going to be honest. That was the impetus for me suggesting we cast our own, is like, show's really good. I'm not even like a huge NFL person, and I was like, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm not either. Yeah. Making your game more accessible, and then you do a WNBA version of this as well. Like you do like some kind of
or you just put Asia in the big one.
Beautiful. Yeah. You do it and you call it a day. You have a W episode. Or you do the buckets when you put Stewie in there. You put Kelsey Plum in there. Mm-hmm. Honestly, Brendon, you could do a 4-parter just on you could do a 6-parter just on Achilles recoveries, and I would watch it.
Yeah. No, there's a lot here, and I hope congrats to Turner. You've gotten the website and the Bleacher Report stuff, but like the NBA should be thinking a little more creatively with the content side of like it doesn't just have to be an app.
We are available for production consultations at reasonable rates after you strike a deal with the unions. All right, let's go to our main topic of the day, under the radar. Well, actually, you know what, Brendon? I think we should just do White Man Can't Jump and get this done. I think we should like save the big stuff. I just want to get this done, and I want to move on and forget. Okay. Like,
let's do it.
This movie sucks, man. This movie's garbage. It's a I gave it a 2-star out of 5.
Okay, I gave it
2 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
I gave it 1. And I
was being kind, I guess. This movie sucks.
I'm already thinking. First of all, to set the stage, I watched this sandwiched between my Barbenheimer experience on Saturday. I didn't finish it, so I did finish it this morning while I was eating breakfast. But I watched like an hour of this movie during my break between Oppenheimer and Barbie. So really weird palate cleanser. Maybe that contributed.
Jack Harlow is a Ken. Jack Harlow is a Ken.
Yeah, that's very fair. So yeah, I did not like it. I will say I told my wife, because she was sitting there while I was watching it at that hour or so yesterday. I told her the first 15 to 30 minutes, I literally said, this is better than I wanted it to be. Like it's catching my attention because like the beginning is just charm. Right? And I actually feel like Jack Harlow, and I don't know how to say the other lead's name, and I feel bad.
Sneakwa Walls, I think.
Okay. Sneakwa, is that it? I don't know.
I think so. Okay.
I feel bad, but I've never heard it said. He's not that big of an actor. We'll call him Kamal because that's his name in the movie.
Yeah.
They're just able to like charm it up and like be broy and like kind of, be on basketball courts and kind of joke around. And I was like, okay, like this kind of has the vibe of the original movie a little bit. And then once it has to generate emotional stakes and like the basketball pressure gets ramped up, it just is the most corny, absurd, ridiculous thing. I have some specifics here, but Did you like the original White Men Can't Jump? Like, do you have a relationship to that movie? Did it matter to you? Do you like it?
That's a cable classic for me.
Yeah.
The last time I actually had watched it before I rewatched it after watching this one.
Okay.
Was I watched it at Summer League in 2021? It was like that and The Purge were on back to back at like midnight when I was in my hotel room, and I was just like, okay, I can't go to sleep, so whatever. The first one has a lot of charm.
Yeah.
And it has the benefit of having Woody Harrelson, Wesley Snipes, and Rosie Perez. Like, it's just like
that is exactly the thing, is they made this movie a joke before it even came out. Like, they made it seem like the original White Man Can't Jump was some sort of like campy, dumb movie, and it's like, it's silly. It is not like Woody Harrelson's Oscar reel of like when he passes away 50 years from now and we're all sad that Woody Harrelson is gone. It's not going to be playing clips from that movie probably. But it's a beloved movie that's well acted and like a legitimate real movie. Whereas this one, it's like you're putting a pop star who's never done a single thing on film in his life, and that's what, like, come on. It was blasphemy from the very beginning.
Yes. Also, just here's the other reason why. R.I.P. Lance Reddick, a king, one of our best actors, and he's just like in this movie for like 5 minutes, and it's just like, what?
The hilarious.
Like, hope he got.
And it's weird that he passes away in this movie. Like, that's just an unfortunate, like, I'm sorry to spoil it for people. I don't feel too bad. Considering that, like, obviously in real life, the timing aligned where, you know, we did
he died. Yeah, he died. Well, he died right before John Wick 4 came out, which I thought was going to be the last time I saw him in a movie. And I was like, okay.
And now
like,
it's this nonsense.
It's White Man Can't Jump!
But the most insane part of the entirety of his storyline in this movie is that literally basketball kills him.
Yeah.
He tries to play basketball one last time, and that like flares up his disease of multiple sclerosis and whatever. Like, what are we doing? Basketball.
Here's a
like you're making it too high stakes. Like the original is like veering on a little bit excessive with how like seriously they take basketball. This one was just like absurd. Jack Harlow has a line shortly after we find out the fate of the dad where he says, "You don't need therapy. Basketball is your therapy." That's a line in this film.
Yeah. Well, Brendon, there's also a line in this movie that I do have a few positive things to say, and I actually have a pitch of how I'd fix this movie.
Okay.
I do have a pitch of how I'd fix this. Do you remember the line? Well, number one, he says, P.T. Anderson, our greatest living director. Like, that Spike Lee. Like, who the fuck calls Paul Thomas Anderson P.T. Anderson?
I've heard that said, but also the context under which he says it, like the way he frames Paul Thomas Anderson as like what his importance is in society. I'm like, have the people who wrote this script ever watched one of his movies, or did they just want to plug in a white director to be the difference between him and Spike Lee?
It's that. They reverse engineered it, and I was just like, "What?"
Jeremy, Jack Harlow's character in this movie, would never have watched a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
The only one he has ever watched is Boogie Nights because there's a bunch of sex in it. That's literally the only one he has ever watched.
Yeah, maybe Magnolia because he's like very highfalutin and he's like, therapy, whatever.
Yeah. But like has never watched The Master, has never watched There Will Be Blood. Like 0% chance that guy is like okay.
Probably doesn't know those exist. He probably thinks Magnolia or Boogie Nights are like the only one, and he heard about it one time. Yeah.
He's like, what? He's like, what's Hard 8? And I'd be like, what? Okay. The line that he says where Luka's the best player in the league, and if we acknowledge that, it would fix race relations in this country is one of the wildest things I've ever heard said like out loud.
I don't feel fully equipped to comment on the racial discussions in this movie, but they're so over the top, especially from the Lorenzo dude, the non-Vince Staples buddy.
Oh, we're going to get to Vince Staples because
he is just like every scene in the writing ends with him doing some sort of little clever quip about race in America, and that part
of
it
is
really
a Kenya Barris thing.
Yes, it is exactly a Kenya Barris thing. It's exactly. Did you watch You People, the Netflix movie?
I refuse to like.
Don't.
Yeah, no.
It's like Lorenzo in this movie, but the whole entire shit is just Lorenzo's lines. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that was pretty unbearable. I'm not gonna lie. It just wasn't interesting or clever at all.
No, and like the other part about this that I found that took me out of it a little bit is the guy they cast. I don't know if I only know this for like very weird reasons. And he has some stuff that's like somewhat funny, but there's the comedian Andrew Schultz plays the guy that Jack Harlow's character is buying drugs from,
Yes.
Andrew
Schultz. Yeah.
He is like most known, I think, in broader culture for like saying some very problematic things about COVID-19 and using it to like kind of like stereotype Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what? It's like it's just like the whole energy in that is very weird. This whole movie is just like weird. I did enjoy calling the joke about calling him a Harden. I did enjoy that. That was like maybe my favorite line of the movie. Like if you wanted something positive, that was like a good line. Shout out to Vince Staples. I want to just I'm a
yeah.
Vince
We have
Staples
let's do best and worst cameo because I have that in here. There's
Vince
a few,
Staples isn't
not
really
as
a
many as like
cameo.
Hustle, but no, it's not really a cameo, but it kind of counts.
No, but he got great robs. We should rob him. Send him a message. I like Mildred. She cool. I just like Vince Staples. And have you watched Abbott Elementary?
No.
He's in Abbott Elementary in season 2. And like I love Vince Staples.
I
He's
love
one of my
Vince
favorite
Staples.
rappers.
Nobody looks or sounds cooler than Vince Staples. Like you'd put him on screen, and I'm like, all right, I'm jealous. Like he just has it.
He's awesome, and I just really enjoy him getting like. He was at least like somewhat enjoyable to me in this movie. The best cameo to me is Tyler Hero at the end. Yeah. That's it. More than
really
the Blake.
good.
It's that one.
Especially if you know that him and Jack Harlow are like boys.
And because he has a song called Tyler Hero,
Yeah.
and then like.
And then it's like playing on how Tyler Hero is like secretly a complete asshole, which I don't believe, but it's just funny.
Yeah.
The Blake Griffin one was too short to count, but it was kind of funny when he's like, this counts as charity or like volunteer hours for me, so smile for the picture or whatever.
And he did produce the movie. Like he was like part of the production team of the movie, so like it makes sense that he's in there.
Yeah, it's funny. All right, I have my main, most hilarious, most insane thing that I can't believe did not. Maybe it did already go viral online and I missed it, but I don't think enough people watched this for virality to happen.
That.
So, at the beginning of the film, there is a scene, the intro scene where Jack Harlow, who is shooting like TikTok content with one of the kids that he's training, meets Kamal, the Cinqua. It's Cinqua or something. Yeah. Wall's character, and shows off with the shooting, very similar to the original, right? Like you didn't realize he could at least shoot, and then he has a little more to his game, which is my last nitpick that we can get to after this. So he shoots, speaking of Luka, one of these, like, at the very end of that scene, like the punctuation mark on that scene is he shoots like a floater 3, like off one leg.
Yep.
Okay, so they use a stand-in, like, I don't want to say stunt double, but they use a double for that because Jack Harlow can't make a shot like that. His basketball is by far the worst. Also, side note, you can tell when he
had to clearly like train to learn how to play for this. That was like a whole thing.
There's a couple times when he's like coming off a screen and it's like the angle is all wrong, and you can tell he's like barely keeping his dribble.
The cuts are like drastic. Yeah.
The drone shots with the basketball also really like unnecessary little flourish in this movie. So that shot of him making the floater 3 at the end of that introductory scene, he is using his right hand. At the end of the film, in the big basketball competition, which is somehow for $500,000, I don't think that type of thing exists for $500,000 in some random beach in LA.
What I assumed in my head is that was actually getting paid out in Bitcoin, and then none of these guys actually made any money because the value of Bitcoin plummeted.
That would be closer to the original, because that's the other thing missing from this movie is it's like the happiest possible ending, which is not how the original like fully ends.
They Disney-fied it. They Disney-fied it.
Yes. But so there is a scene in which Jack Harlow takes a shot, the Jeremy character, but it's actually Jack Harlow and not a double, and the man shoots left-handed. They got the hand wrong from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. They didn't get a double who actually shoots the same hand with the same hand as Jack Harlow. Like, how does that make it through enough rounds of edits on Hulu to be put up in a real freaking movie? That is the most, like, oh my God. I literally went back and then I tried to screenshot it, but then Hulu doesn't let you screenshot, obviously, with copyright stuff. Hilarious.
Movie's all right, here's how I would fix it to get it from like I'm going to change my Letterboxd grade, Brendon, to like a 1.5. I'm docking it half.
Okay.
I went to, and someone who had, like, Sean Fennessy has not talked about this in the big picture, but he gave it a 2, and I was like, okay, if Sean gave it a 2, I'm just gonna give it a 2.
It's not going to be talked about on that program. I'm just sorry to let you down. It's only us. We're the only guys on the content block for White Men Can't Jump.
Could you imagine Chris Ryan talking about White Men Can't Jump? Chris Ryan, come on the pod. Let's talk about White Men Can't Jump and Cormac McCarthy novels and the return of Justified. I'm ready to go. This is my moment.
Sounds like that's not a podcast called Just Basketball. Something tells me that doesn't quite fit. That's
on the page. That's on the After Dark Patreon. We haven't launched yet.
Okay, how would you fix it?
Okay, so you know how on his water bottle, and he's making the TikTok content, and then he has like his handle on his water bottle he loses.
Yeah.
The way you make this movie modern and make it feel like something that could more easily happen is like you have them like maybe not TikTok because they're a little old for TikTok, but like Instagram or YouTube. Mm-hmm. He should have been like a YouTube content creator or like a TikTok or an Instagram content creator, and they're making videos about them hustling people, and they raise the stakes and raise the stakes and raise the stakes, and like you make it so like
a
so
prank
like
video,
it's not,
like
yeah, you
like
make
OG
yeah.
YouTube-y stuff almost.
Yeah, did you ever watch American Vandal?
I did not.
Okay, there's a guy I can't remember his last name. I think his first name is Jimmy. But like there's a guy with like a really deep voice in that show who's like it's a spoilers for American Vandal. That show on season 1 is about like who's drawing dicks on all the cars and all around the school. He gets like falsely accused of it. And then he ends up like whatever. Bring him in as like the third. He's just like a very humorous guy that actually can act really well and like goof around, make these dumb videos. Mm-hmm. And then they just like make this like a thing where they keep raising the stakes, and that's how like his girlfriend finds out. That's how like this all gets big, and they get enough. Like that's how you build it. And then you could say like Taylor Rooks at the end. Good Taylor Rooks. Hope you got some Hulu money for this. Interviews him. It's like, oh, like you got this deal, like because it doesn't make sense that he wins a 3-on-3 tournament like in his late 20s, and then is able to go play in China, and then ended up in South Bay, and then get attended Lakers. Like that path doesn't make any sense.
It also
but
doesn't
if there was,
make
like,
sense that all the people who recognize him don't know what happened to him when he like beat the living shit out of somebody in a high school championship game or whatever it was, and they're all like, "What's up, bro? Why aren't you like playing in the NBA?" It's like, how would they know who he is but not know how that whole story ended?
Yeah. Also, like that scene has like some real charged energy to it that I was just like, oh boy, okay.
It gets weird.
A white kid. Yeah. It gets real weird. But if you incorporate like a YouTube component of this,
I could see it.
You can make it like make a little bit more like the spine of the movie would make more sense if you actually like were digitally like chronicling some of this, because like the part of what makes the 90s one work, aside from like the really the bonkers good actors. It's the fish out of waterness.
Yes.
And these like two unlikely people. It's not overdone, and it like feels like it fits the time. This feels like they tried to take the cliches, like basic things possible about 2023, throw them in there, and that was enough.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It was weird.
I'll cap us off by saying he can dunk in this movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't even it really wasn't even a remake of the original movie. Like
no,
very little of the qualities of it outside. Like they're not really hustling either. Like they kind of just show up at parks and like they don't like get people to play them, but it's not like the traditional setup of a hustle where it's like, who's that white boy? Like, which is very core to the original movie.
Yeah, they don't show you the fun parts of this, which is them like goading people into playing them and then taking their money.
No, you just see them like almost like it's like a little like tournament that they'll like all of a sudden they're just playing, and then there's a flamethrower at one point. Like,
well, so that's like that's like a callback to the first one, and it's like how do we make this scene more absurd? It's like we're gonna give a guy a flamethrower, and it's like what?
Yeah, he can dunk, and there's no bet like there is in the. It's just like it seems like they were too scared of leaning too much into the original, and they wanted to like give their take on it, and they just were not. There was not enough brain power and talent involved in this movie to make it get over the top. Jack Harlow is nowhere near as charming or talented as Woody Harrelson. Wesley Snipes is the god. There's no competing with that. Kenya Barris wanted to do his whole thing in here. It was just too much. It was painful.
All right, let's R.I.P. Lance Reddick. I can't believe that's the last movie ever.
Hopefully there's another one.
I hope to God, or else I'm just going to rewatch John Wick like 5 times. Which, like, I might do anyway. All right, under the radar NBA storylines. Brendon, let's start with Jaylen Brown's extension. Doesn't have one yet. Was just in Spain. Seems like now he's going to come back and negotiate it. It's just weird to me considering all the reporting is like, oh, it's going to get done, it's going to get done, it's going to get done. That this hasn't happened yet. That's why to me this is an under the radar thing because it's just weird. This is just a weird one.
What's weird to me is that they're treating like the extension talks, like the negotiations, like you keep hearing Celtics reporters and other people kind of referencing that as if it's like, why would that not have started a long time ago? This is not free agency, you know? It's not as if they had to wait until June 30th to, okay, now we're legally allowed to talk and all this type of stuff. Like that's been allowed under whatever rules you would want to be respecting for a long time. So the idea that they're kind of just now, like in late July, like really sitting down, that is the weirder part. Not so much like anything related to what he's allowed to do or not allowed. It's just or like what he wants, what they want. It's really just the timing of like, why did they not take this more seriously sooner?
I don't understand. Like, were they keeping their doors open for trades? Were they what is the holdup? I guess is like my big question here. Like, we're not getting like massive indications of like what the real issue is here. It's just like there's something in the water here that feels off to me in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like from what Zach Lowe has said that it's kind of the smaller. Is there going to be a trade kicker? Is there going to be a player option? Is there going to be... I don't think he can get a no-trade clause. I don't think he would get a no-trade clause, but it's some of that.
I don't think is anyone ever getting a no-trade clause again?
Probably somebody will eventually, but...
If Giannis asked for it, he would get it.
Probably would get it.
If Luka asked for it. But like no one else that's not that good should be able to get it.
No, nobody that's like a fringe all-star like Beal was. Let me just ask you this. Because we now have, if you wanted to, and I'm not even saying these all belong in the same level of likelihood, but we're kind of now looking at Harden and Dame, right? Plus now Siakam. And then on the very, very fringes, you're talking about Embiid and Jaylen Brown, where it's like, if something catastrophic happened in whatever the relationship is between them and their team, in some version of events, maybe they get traded.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. If I set the over-under on trades of that caliber between now and the start of the regular season, so that includes training camp, if I set the over-under at 2, which allows you to not just say Lillard and Harden, would you go over or under 2? Or let's say 2.5. Let's say 2.5 is the over-under.
I'm going to go under because I think it's Siakam and Harden, and I don't think anyone else. Well, I think it's over because I'm going to go Siakam, Harden. No, I'm going to go under because I'm going to go Lillard and Siakam, and Harden's going to stay put. I think that's going to get ugly.
Okay.
That would be my guess. I just don't like if anyone is comfortable with getting ugly, it is Daryl Morey and James Harden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe the Harden thing ends up like when he was in Houston or Jimmy Butler in Minnesota, where it has to get like capital U ugly before it gets
like how thick can James Harden show up?
He's gonna push it. Yeah, I would probably go.
How many
over.
C's?
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's probably Jaylen and Embiid stay put, and that sounds obvious, but I would say Siakam, Lillard, and Harden all do get traded before the start of the
Harden
season.
one. The Harden one, I just like have no read on. The Brown thing, it's like he's gonna get the biggest contract, like richest contract in league history, and it's like, is he ever getting traded on that?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, it feels like this one, outside of what followed, which was a series of injury problems, it feels somewhat like that first round of Supermaxes of Blake Griffin and John Wall. Remember those? Like, before Westbrook and Harden eventually got theirs. That's what this Jaylen Brown extension kind of feels like, where it's like he has stuck it out and done enough for his franchise, and the rules of the CBA allow them to do a big contract for him. So it's going to happen. But almost immediately, I think we're all going to know that's pretty big roll of the dice. And like that is a not great situation to be in, considering the magnitude of all of it and how big the stakes are for Boston. But I do think it still gets done. I don't think he's going to get traded. But they're cementing that it's, like you said, going to be pretty hard to trade him if they do give him that contract. Like, this is kind of their last chance to consider a trade. It just doesn't seem like they are.
Yeah, look, there are going to be other insane contracts they could trade it for, but it's like, look, Jalen's also an interesting guy. Like, he's going to have a unique perspective on this. We all remember his kind of media tour at the end of last season where he was like, it kind of was like, is he trying to get his way out of Boston? Like, that's what it felt like at the time, and all of this is just a little weird, Brendon. Because like if I'm Boston, it's like, to quote Don Draper, like that's what the money's for. It's like you want all this other stuff. Like we're just gonna give you the most amount of money that you possibly could get.
Yeah. The past 6 months have definitely not been, if you're the Celtics, like how you would have wanted things to go heading toward this extension, including the loss in the playoffs. That's the most egregious, you know.
So here's the last thing I'll say on Jaylen. I get why Boston would do this. I think like their offseason would indicate that they are very much, they're still building around the Jays. This is still a Jay-centric franchise. But they have adjusted things. I mean, they're not going to be able to switch as much. Marcus is gone. Porzingis is in. Like, it's a different looking team next year. It just is. I wonder what their patience will be or what their trust will seem to be in Jaylen to do something a little bit different than what we've seen from him. Like, does he take on like a more of a lead ball handler role than we've seen just because they need someone to absorb some of that now that Marcus is gone? I wonder if they think there's untapped upside to him in a way that maybe we're not considering. I don't know if I fully know it's there unless his handle drastically improves. But I wonder if there's some hope in their case that it's like, okay, we're yes, we lost Marcus, but maybe he can be a big leader and maybe he can do more than we've seen.
Yeah, he was a raw prospect. He's about to be 27, so the significant improvement tends to slow down, but it's not impossible. You want to go to the Knicks?
Yeah, let's go to the Knicks. So you brought this one up in our kind of pre-show chatter. Let's talk about the Knicks not having a general manager, Brendon. Tell me about where your brain's at on this.
I mean, it's just a similar thing. I mean, it's an under-the-radar, pretty important storyline, and Scott Perry, who's been the GM here dating back to the last regime, did not have his contract renewed. And obviously we know, like, Leon Rose is the person who gets talked about in this front office the most, but the general manager is the guy on the ground typically in those arrangements. You know what I mean? We underestimate the significance of these people, but to just not have one is very strange. And then you bring in the fact that dating back to some of the Donovan Mitchell talks last year and some different things over the past year or so, Gerson Rosas, who was the president of basketball operations in Minnesota and was in Houston for a long time before that, who had to leave because of a relationship with a woman in the front office over there, has been working as like an advisor for the Knicks. Is this setting up for him to get another shot? I don't really have a big opinion on if that's good or bad. I don't think he did a great job in Minnesota. Traded for D'Angelo Russell. That was a pretty big mistake. Got rid of Andrew Wiggins. I think everyone was ready for Wiggins to be gone there, but he blossomed elsewhere, right? Like, those aren't great. And then the last leg of this is they're the team that we're talking about with Embiid, right? And so I don't think the Embiid thing is close, as we just discussed, but you stack all those things on top of each other. It is a pretty, like, it is a franchise that will always have pressure on it, but seems to be building toward a big move that now lost its like lead tactician in the front office, which is what most GMs do when there is a big time president, in the most kind of important time for making that move. It's just a set of events that leaves them in a weird spot. And maybe it is just Rosas, and maybe they end up in a better situation as a result. I don't know, but it's very strange for a big NBA franchise to just not have a GM in late July.
You said it right. The Knicks are the team in waiting for a big trade. What does no GM mean for that? Mm-hmm. I don't think we know. And the Embiid would be the most logical one. There's been the reporting and chat about how they are, looking at guards or not pursuing guards in the same way anymore. They're probably looking for bigs. I wonder like what the new voices in there had to deal with the Obi Toppin trade, because they don't have a backup power forward right now, like at all.
And they basically got nothing for a top 10 pick. I mean, 2 seconds. Congrats.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like okay, but I think Toppin's probably better than 2 seconds. It might never like turn into anything real, right? He's still pretty young, does some things really well. Like we've talked about this. I like the fit for him and Indiana quite a bit, and what he's going to get to do as far as maybe playing a little faster with Halliburton and getting a chance to grow a little bit in that situation. I think that'll be good for him.
Well, they also have the Emmanuel Quickley extension, which we talked about last week, that's sitting there. I guess I would just ask you, do you like what they've done since? Like, do you feel like they're in a good spot? Because as much as they've been a good story and they've gotten closer to respectability, when you really think about an Embiid trade or just sort of what the next GM is inheriting or just kind of where they are in this grand master plan since switching over their front office and trying to get things cleaned up there, they're not on the level of like the Nets before KD and Kyrie came or the Clippers with Shea before, Paul George and Kawhi came. They're like a pretty or the Cavs before the Donovan Mitchell trade, you would say, right? Like they're a tick below that. I mean, their best trade asset is Quentin Grimes. That's not a blue chipper that you're gonna like. Daryl Morey is gonna just be crying tears of joy to get.
Their strength is about the fact that they are the next team to get a star and accelerate what this is, to move on from this version of the Randall era. Brunson is going to be a part of that. Whatever comes next year, he'll get kind of pegged down. It's like a number 2 role, I think, ideally. That's probably where this goes. He'll be the lead ball handler if it's Embiid or whomever, but it's going to look a little bit different. But like even they just beat the Cavs. They spanked the Cavs in the playoffs. Beat them pillar to post. Out-physicaled them. You look at Cleveland's roster, it's like they have Mitchell, they have Garland, they have Mobley, they have the Jared Allen trade chip, and they're going to start in time like having some picks and things they can move on draft nights and things. Like Mobley and Garland is just like a longer term like upside with Mitchell, and you could flip him for stuff too. Like the Cavs have these like out to the Knicks. It's like you're waiting as a point of comparison. You are waiting for them to do something, and their roster right now is kind of in a weird spot. It's a lot of guards. It's like Randall, who's like a good innings eater, but I'm not in love. It's solid, but not great center play. Like they might be the 4 seed again this year with this roster, and that's fine. But they think they have higher aspirations, and it just feels like they're waiting until they can actually pull a lever on something really drastic, like an Embiid trade, like what a Mitchell trade would have been.
But I mean, is it fair to say that they're like a tier below in terms of being able to make that trade? Because it's one thing to say, oh, we're waiting around for it, but that just assumes it's going to happen, that they're going to be able to beat other teams' offers and be the one to do that. It's not just going to happen because they're the Knicks and we think that they're ready for it or whatever. That doesn't mean anything. Daryl Morey or Masai Ujiri, whoever's going to be the one to give them their star, doesn't give a shit if they have they're the next team up for a big trade, you know?
Yeah, I guess I just wonder if at a certain point we've seen players dictate where they want to go to some degree, and that works. And I think there's a different world where Donovan Mitchell maybe tries harder to make it clear that he only wants to go to New York, and he ends up in New York. Mm-hmm. Like he has said on the record multiple times that he thought he was going to be with the Knicks. I think all of us assumed that he was going to be with the Knicks. I think there's a world where like he or Embiid or someone, Giannis, whomever it's going to be, Luka, like whomever the guy who asks out is going to be, is like, I only want to go to the Knicks. Get me the Knicks.
So you think their deal, in a world where Tyler Hero is a sticking point because Damian Lillard has said he wants to go somewhere and the Portland Trailblazers have said not good enough, you think that the Knicks package is good enough where that stalemate wouldn't happen and that they could just get it done? It's kind of like the Suns with Durant or the Lakers with Anthony Davis, where it's like, that's where they want to go, but also the deal's good enough, so whatever, we'll do it. You think that the Knicks are like at that point at least?
I think they could get there with the amount of picks. If you can talk yourself into all the picks and all of it. Like the Knicks, here's what I'll say. The Knicks don't have, you're right, the Knicks do not have the blue chip guy. Quentin Grimes is a really solid player, but he's not like, oh my God. RJ Barrett is not, oh my God, we got RJ Barrett. Like we're going to pivot here. Right, we're going to not be able to pivot here perfectly. The amount of picks plus a star that is like, I want to go to the Knicks. Finally, someone will pick the Knicks in this modern NBA era. Whoever it is, if it's the right guy and it's worth all those picks, they'll be okay. I think it also helps, Brendon. I would say that this era where they've been more competent, I do think helps. Like, I do think it'll be easier for someone to go there because, like, they've just not been a joke. And, like, maybe Tibbs isn't the perfect coach for whatever that star era is going to look like. I would have my skepticisms that he's, like, a great playoff coach at this point. There's still some other roster stuff to figure out, especially what you give up will be really telling. But if it's a pick-centered offer and someone agitates there, I do think they're in a good enough spot to get something pretty big done if it breaks that way.
I think that's fair. Which one do you want to go next to? We have 3, but not a lot of time, so I'll let you pick.
Let's do the Knicks don't have a GM, or excuse me, the Giannis knee cleanup one, because this has direct implications on the title picture for next year.
Yeah, he got a surgery. He's allegedly not going or not expected to play in the World Cup next year. It was July 6th that the surgery was reported, but I don't think it was. It says several weeks back as of July 6th, so that tells me early to mid-June was when this surgery happened. I always think of Brian Windhorst, who's the king of saying there's no such thing as a minor knee surgery, which I feel like is true. If any regular human being had a knee surgery, you wouldn't be like, oh, no big deal, like, deal with it.
Brendon, as someone who said knee surgery that my doctor called minor, didn't feel minor when I was, like, not able to, like, do anything for a couple weeks, and I felt like it just my knee felt weird. Even now, it's like you can feel it. Like I could tell you, like, my knee clicks. Like I was not even a good athlete. Like I didn't have, to quote Junior Sprano, I didn't have the makings of like a great varsity athlete, but like my knee clicks, and it's like at some point Giannis, it's like this is a big man. Like this is a 28-year-old big guy.
Well, and he had the back thing, the lower back thing in the playoffs that stole his minutes. I don't think these are related, but it's
but the back stuff is like, to me, like indicative that it's like you are a little bit worn down. Like Kevin Love had this for a while where he kept getting like back spasms, and it was just like you've played a lot of minutes, your body at a certain point does just get beat up. Like your body like as much as we're in this modern era of medicine and modern era of everything, like this stuff does just like playing a ton of minutes and playing physically adds up. I think Giannis right now is just at a point where all the stuff he's done, all the physicality and all the minutes he's played, I think is right now just a little bit catching up to Giannis. That's what this feels like.
I think back to, the interview that he gave following the finals, where in the conference finals against Atlanta, the year that they won the title, he has that grotesque knee out of position injury, and then says to Sam Amick last year, like, if anything were to have happened or even in the future does, like it could really be ugly. I don't know if this is a cleanup of something related to that or just general maintenance for a guy, like you said, who he doesn't play a ton of minutes, but he did earlier in his career under Kidd in the first few years under Mike Budenholzer, and just has had long playoff runs effectively every year for 5 or 6, 7 years now. But so there's one small reason that this matters. One, Greece is in the American group in the World Cup, so it'll just suck to not have the Giannis versus Team USA stuff that we were expecting to get. More significantly, though, to your point, this is one that affects the title picture, which this is a season where a lot is riding on the Bucks core veteran players who are not young anymore to stay healthy and make a big impact and chase a title. So to have your MVP, the clear-cut best player on your team who does everything for you, starting the year with rehab of a knee injury or knee surgery at least, puts them at an even bigger deficit when it comes to who's going to win the title. I mean, that's a pressure season that's starting with a knee problem is just pretty significant. And then, we don't need to talk about the trade stuff, but that's already, creeping up, right? Like people are mentioning that. So weird summer for a team that had a lot riding on it.
Look, Giannis's health for next year is the biggest concern for the Bucks. That's an older roster. There's a lot there that obviously is a little bit dicey here and there. We'll see, like, if Middleton holds up. We'll see if Drew hits a cliff. We'll see if Brook can continue being Brook. It's a first-year head coach. Like, there's a lot of questions around a team that I'm still probably going to pick to finish like second in the East at worst, right? Like, I just believe in Giannis that much. But if he's not healthy, then buckle up. Like, that's not going to be pretty. Like, that team won't be nearly the capability. If Giannis isn't healthy, then it's just like.
No, I mean,
like,
even in
what
the
are we
regular
doing here this
season, I
year?
mean, the best player in the NBA being removed from a team that doesn't have a ton of other star depth, you're asking for problems.
But I think best player in the conference, just because it's Jokic. Right? Like Jokic has the actual belt right now. That guy just won the title. I'm giving
Belt
Jokic
versus opinionated best. That can go either way.
Yeah.
I think if Giannis is the
yeah.
best player in the league, we can go to war over that a different day, maybe.
Sure. All right, let's move on. Let's do no deal for PJ Washington, who I just think Brendon is like a good player who has like a very like modern NBA skill set. And I understand this is maybe a conversation about what restricted free agency has turned into, and it just kind of screws guys that aren't like obvious like really max candidates. Like it just kind of really leverages you in an uncomfortable way. I just don't understand how he hasn't like found a home or at least gotten some kind of resolution, because I think he's a guy who is good. He's still 24, will be 25 next season. You're going to get him for a couple years. He's got a very modern skill set. Can shoot it at least well enough where I think teams respect it. Last year's the worst shooting year of his career, but he's still at like 35% on threes. Like, I just like this player, and I don't understand how he's still just kind of sitting on a purgatory a little bit here.
It's another bad thing for the Hornets. The Miles Bridges situation, somewhat out of their control at the beginning, and now under their control with continuing to try to negotiate and figure out if they can keep him, and then, drafting questionably, to say the least. This year, we'll see. I don't want to just downplay Brandon Miller before he ever gets a chance to play well or look good or anything. I do think he fits their team, but he did not look great in Summer League, and there's a lot of questions about why they made that pick, and the GM couldn't even answer the question of why they made that pick. And now this, I think PJ Washington is tailor-made for the modern NBA. I think he could go to a championship team and be a rotation player immediately and be one of those guys we look at and it's just like, what the hell were the Hornets doing? And if they let him get away, that it's just a complete mess up of managing an asset. It feels like a situation where if a team actually tried to give him an offer sheet, like I've thought of Dallas with what they did for Thibault, maybe even a little higher than that. They have most of their mid-level available.
Well, he can play offense, and Thibault can't really play offense. So
exactly. So maybe they go 10 starting salary for him. But what I was going to say is I think Charlotte just matches that. But it's like if you're going to match it anyway, then just do the deal. Like this is how you ruin relationships with players, and he's a good player. This is not some guy who still needs to prove something. He has been productive and good in the NBA. So why would you jeopardize anything with that when you don't even – it's not like you're over the tax. It's just the most obvious thing in the world to bring him back. Apparently, he wants 4 years, $80 million. Would you give him that?
Yeah, and look, so like this is where I was going to go with this. Jake Fisher had a really good story detailing a lot of this week before, whatever that was. Time is fake to me right now. And after the Isaiah Stewart extension, and this is an exact. I just pulled up the story. This is the exact wording from the story. Quote, Washington has not drawn an offer from the Hornets that reaches Stewart's salary figure, sources said, of $16 million per season. He's a better player than Isaiah Stewart, who I like. I don't think Isaiah Stewart's like a bad player, but PJ Washington is worth that, if not more. And look, I understand from like an organizational perspective, you're selling the team, and there's probably some financial complications to that. You're like, okay, we have to be really judicious about our money here, and we just gave LaMelo all this money and whatever. And I understand, like, the most he could get on a mid-level forward deal is 4 for $50, which is far away from what he wants. And maybe there's not a sign and trade at this point. And again, I think restricted free agency is really screwing guys that aren't obvious max guys. But this is a player that is worth more than 16 a year. And if I were him, and this has been reported, take the qualifying at 8.5. And at least have more freedom a year from now and bet on yourself a little bit. I think if in this situation, that's not an unrealistic thing for do. And if Charlotte doesn't want to play ball in that case, and just do it and go somewhere else, and maybe it's going to value a little bit more a year from now.
Yeah, that's a big risk. I hear you. I think more guys should try to do that, but I do think that's a little bit easier. Like, I always feel bad trying to tell somebody you're stranding yourself. You're taking a 1-year deal and then hitting unrestricted free agency. He was healthy this past year, but he's dealt with injuries dating back to college, and I mean, Miles Bridges is doing that, for different reasons, but to just do it to kind of send an FU to the franchise is a rarity. But the thing is,
case, maybe worth it.
Might be worth it. I mean, he is good enough that if he's even close to full health, he will get a pretty significant offer next year, I would think. And again, perfect for a great team, and that's a great position to be in if you're PJ Washington, right? You're a coveted player type. You're productive. You're proven. You're hitting your prime. You're everything that a team should want. The Charlotte Hornets are just too stupid to see that. I don't know. I mean, I get this is how some of this stuff happens, and maybe he does just end up back there, and it's not that big of a deal. But the fact that he even hit restricted free agency in the first place isn't great. You know, this is a guy who could have gotten an extension, and now we're to the second part of what's supposed to be, you know, the team and the player kind of coming together on it. So, I mean, I would prefer to see him on a better team. I think the Hornets are one of the most confusingly run organizations out there. And I just want everybody good to get to leave because it does not seem pleasant to play there. Put him on Dallas, put him somewhere, and he'll be good. Could be a sign and trade, could be an offer sheet, whatever. I just want to see it.
If he does roll us over to next year, here are some teams. Right now, this could change, obviously subject to change, but here are teams with like the teams with $50 million or more in projected practical cap space next summer. The Rockets, the Thunder, the Pacers, the Jazz, the Wizards, the Raptors, the Sixers, the Spurs, the Pistons, the Magic. In a not great star-level free agency market, that might be a good opportunity for PJ Washington to go chase a little bit more money if he can stay healthy this year and bet on himself a little bit. Like, you're telling me that, like, the Spurs wouldn't be like, yeah. Like,
or I even, like, Toronto and Orlando are the ones that jumped out to me.
Yeah. Yeah, Orlando, like, hey, Orlando, like, he'd be great with Paolo. Could play with Franz and Paolo. Like, they could do like some really awesome stuff. He can be kind of that
small ball five for them.
If I'm him, I would really consider that and at least have some more control over my situation a year from now.
Last one, we can do the Thunder real quick. It's just there's not a lot to analyze, but basically they cut Rudy Gay, so they are down to 19 guaranteed contracts, which is legal right now. That's not what's interesting about it, but they have to get to 15 by opening night, obviously. You will probably see them cut Victor Oladipo. So that gets them to 18. Then you're talking about cutting one of the guys that they just got from Houston, which would be Garuba and Ty Washington, cutting Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins, who were non-guaranteed for them, or who are non-guaranteed for them, but were pretty solid role players for them last year, and I don't think Joe's getting cut. And then apart from that, you're talking about guys who cost a good deal of money, whether that's Davis Bertans and the $17 million that he's owed, or Trey Mann, who's been playing for them for a while and had a really good summer league, who they drafted. You're getting into some difficult decisions. Even if you cut Garuba and Washington, you still have to cut one more. You're cutting guys who have shown promise or who you've invested a lot in. And this is just sort of the reason it's interesting to me is I don't think that it's as easy as we make it out to be, that the path after massive trades is always just cake. We think of it as like Utah, Houston, New Orleans, these teams that have had to trade away Brooklyn now, who have had to trade away superstars. It's like, oh, they'll just be set up for 10 years, no problem. It's like those assets catch up to you. You can't just roster 15 draft picks a year for the rest of time. That's not an option under the rules. And so you end up having to make a different type of hard decision, and that's what's kind of staring the Thunder in the face already, and they're not even like a bona fide contender or even close yet.
Yeah, I feel like maybe just like eat the Bertans money and like that's fine. Like I whatever. I'd rather play other guys in that spot anyway.
So you would go Garuba, Washington, and Bertans, the guys that kind of mean the least to them?
Yeah, that or if someone like look, I mean, if someone offered me a reasonable trade for like Lou Dort, I'd listen to that. If someone came with like a overzealous offer for Kenrich Williams, listen to that. I really like Kenrich Williams. The problem there is that this is a team that like doesn't really need any more draft picks. Like, what are you going to offer them that's like really or is there like a surprise?
It's like a consolidation trade that they need to make, but I don't think they're at that point yet.
No, but like maybe here's what I would ask you, Brendon. Is Shea already good enough where you should maybe do something akin to that? I don't know who that is. Like the perfect guy that I would think of if we were gonna like roadmap someone for them to trade for would have been like Lauri Markkanen a year ago. Like this should have been a John Collins consolidated. Like, this would have been a good John Collins team.
Except that only took a Rudy Gay, who they ended up getting and cutting to get, so it wouldn't have been a consolidation.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess like in a world where Rudy, like John Collins got traded for like nothing, but like is there a consolidation trade for like Lauri Markkanen a year ago that's out there that we're not seeing?
maybe like Siakam would be the example now or something. I mean, I think like the point to me that would make me not want to do that is Shea is good enough to answer that part of your question. What's not at the right moment is that I don't fully know what Giddey, Chet, and Jalen Williams are. Yeah. And so I don't want to I don't want to put something in front of them. Right? And that's kind of the weird spot that they're in right now is it's another year where Shea's going to sort of have to play ball with their patience. And I'm not questioning that he's willing to. I think he is. And I think he's also good enough that it's not going to be some sort of tanking year. We've seen that already. So they're going to win. They might just not be like the 3 seed like maybe they could be in a few years. And that's just a little strange. But that's why I wouldn't do one. But the other part of this too is, I would cut Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. I don't think that he's – I just don't think I've seen enough. Even dating back to Villanova, the athleticism is just not there. The shooting is not quite good enough. He's not big enough. It just does not feel like he has a really solid NBA role, and he's making very little. So I would cut him and consider keeping one of the Rockets guys. But the other part of this is how the hell are they going to decide who plays this year? Like, you get down to 15 roster spots, but that's already like 15 guys you're invested in, and they're not going to play 15 dudes every night. So that's going to be its own kind of concern is Poku just not playing? Is it going to be year 3 of Ousmane Dieng not, or maybe 2? I don't know how long he's been in the league. Like another year where you're just not even investing in him. The other Jalen Williams, who was a big part for you, like is there a roster spot for the Arkansas Jalen Williams? Like that's going to be a whole other aspect of this of like, guys just getting benched and not developing.
And we're not in a world where the G League is fully like a comfortable thing for guys. It's just not. Like we're not in a world where like guys are just comfortable going to play in the G League, or there's not like a stigma to it to some degree. And there's not like loans. Like you couldn't be like, hey, like we're gonna loan we're not gonna loan like okay, like hey, we don't want Davis isn't gonna play for us against the G League. We're not gonna load him to like a European club for 6 months so we can go play, and we'll pay a salary, but like at least he's just like out of the like we can go like 2 years ago Jiang could have just went back to Europe for like a year. Or like gone to New Zealand again for a year and played, and it's like cool. Like you at least do that. You don't have that option here, which makes some of the development, I agree, very difficult. And I guess that's why like Mark Daigneault, he got this extension. I really like him as a coach. I think that's like the right hire still for this group, but I guess that's why you hire a developmentally minded coach.
And it's why you have a superstar like Shea who has proven his kind of commitment, and ability to be patient and everything else. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. That guy has probably gone through strange situations among the best of the best in this league. That guy has had to deal with the most shit, it feels like, of maybe anybody in terms of not his own choosing, right? Like Clippers, Thunder getting benched to tank, getting to play, but not having his teammates be good enough, all that stuff. It's a weird spot, but kudos to him for dealing with it well. We'll just have to see who they prioritize and who develops and what their team looks like. But I mean, the big point is their superstars will continue to get better, but this stuff matters. Yeah. Also, Poku's extension eligible, and like, how do you make a reasonable decision on Poku being extension eligible? Like, unfortunately, he's not getting one. I don't think. He is more intrigued to me than Sauce. And look, a year from now, Brendon, I would say this too. If Chet had not gotten hurt last year and we had seen him just be awesome last year, I think this might be a different conversation. If he had also come in last year, that's what I'm saying. If they had just more data and proof that told you like we have Jalen, Giddey, Shea, and Chet, we're ready to rock, then I think this might be like a little bit different of a reality for them. And who knows? By the trade deadline, maybe that's all it takes, and they're ready. Maybe they're like on a 50-win pace already, and then they're like, okay, well, damn, we can trade Dort plus some of these other young prospects, Dort, Jang, and Poku for something, or whatever. It gets easier. Just call Josai and Godfather offer for Mikal Bridges. But that's part, honestly, though, like thinking about it now, that's part of why the Bertans salary might actually make sense to consider keeping. Because you could match. Because you don't have any salaries on this roster because they're so young. It's the Rockets thing. Yeah, and the matching stuff is more stringent now. You have to get closer to the value. So I think you might be. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. Just keep Bertans around. Let him shoot a bunch of threes and worry about it later. They liked having Saric and Muscala and those, like they've liked that in the past. Those guys are a little more center-ish than Bertans. But Bertans is like a wing, really. But having adults in your locker room, I think, is good.
Like, I think just having
That's
like
very
a guy,
kind to Davis Bertans. Have you heard something about his leadership that we haven't?
No, he's just like not 20.
Yeah.
Like, he's 30. Like, at least he's like 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like, that's a really young roster.
That's fair. I honestly think Oladipo would be kind of perfect, but I just don't think they can afford to do that.
Yeah, Oladipo would be
not
amazing.
Play probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, Brendon, I'm gonna break some news to you and the listeners. I had no idea that trade had happened until you said it. I had literally just had missed that.
And you do a basketball podcast for a living. What are we doing?
Look,
no, I had
you
just
know
looked
where
at
I
their
was.
cap sheet more.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't even know. I don't even remember the specifics of anything. I don't know what went back. I don't know. Obviously, the Heat just dumped him because they're trying to do this Dame trade and get under the tax and do all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I think it was just like they sent some seconds to Oklahoma City attached to Oladipo type of thing. But
yeah, poor Vic.
It's rough. It's rough that the Heat thing happened after his injury, and now he's dumped, and
and now he's back in Oklahoma City. Technically, they should honestly waive him, but then just like give him like a lot of money to work in your front office. There's no cap on that.
Oh, you're cutting him loose from the league. He's done playing forever. I think he's going to try it again. Hope.
But hey, get access to rehab facilities for a year and help mentor our young guys.
You know what the full circle way to close this out is what? This is exactly like Kamal in the White Men Can't Jump. Just he's having to grasp his mortality as a pro. I mean, Jeremy too. You know, both of our main characters in one of our most accomplished recent films. You're about to see Oppenheimer, Chris, so you'll have to report back on whether that or White Men Can't Jump is kind of higher in your personal rankings and record book.
I could already tell you which one's going to be higher.
I would not count it out so soon. I mean, Oppenheimer, you know, it's only directed by one of like the most accomplished filmmakers ever, whereas the White Men Can't Jump was directed by a music video director.
That actually, now that you said that, should have got Lyrical Lemonade to make that if you're going to have a music director do that. That guy actually shoots like amazing music videos, or like Hype Williams. Not real tough. All right, that's going to be it for the Just Basketball Show. We'll be back on Thursday or Wednesday, depending on when we record, for more basketball content. Maybe we'll get some James Harden stuff by then. Probably not. Maybe we'll get some Dame Lillard stuff by then. Maybe not. We'll talk some W. But until then, this has been the Just Basketball Show for Monday, July 24th. Again, go click the link below. Support us by buying something in homage. And thanks again to Jillian Heiser and Jake Stevens for producing. Enjoy the hoops. Back at you later this week.